And welcome back to another Wednesday edition of 705 Sports Headlines. Let's jump right into it because we got a very packed segment to go over today. The Sault Greyhounds are set to battle the Windsor Spitfires on Thursday night. So the Greyhounds are looking for a much better outcome than they did the last time these two teams played. The Greyhounds were outscored 15-6 in the two games they faced last time, and they were also outshot in both games. Goaltending was a bit of an issue with Tucker Tanyan starting in both games, Ivanov having to come in the second game, and he still struggled a bit. So the big question for me is who should start in this game? We have a graphic that's going to go over our two netminders in their past two starts. So when we look at the two goalies, Tucker Tanyan's been struggling a little bit of late. I mean, he is the better goaltender normally, but I think he's hit a little bit of a slump. Where Ivanov, on the other hand, is actually playing some of the best hockey he's played all season long. So if it was me right now, I think you got to go with the hot hand. Now, people are saying, oh, but the playoffs. This isn't the playoffs yet. I think, obviously, unless Ivanov starts playing just unbelievable for the rest of the season, I think it's Tanyan's net to run with in the playoffs, as he is a bit more of a veteran netminder. He has that experience, which you really need in a playoff series. But I do think right now, Ivanov is the player we're going to focus on. Now, before we get into what's next on our little schedule, I do want to mention that the World Junior Tournament has announced that they are planning on restarting this tournament again in the summer, and there will be exact dates during the Olympic break. So that's some big news for the World Juniors. As you know, a couple Greyhounds were at this tournament. Unfortunately, they didn't really get a chance to do much. But at the end of the day, this is great to see that this tournament will be happening. When more details become available, of course, I'll have you covered. So now let's move off from minor hockey to the NHL. The Edmonton Oilers suck. There's just no other way to put it. And when we look at the stats in the last 5 games, we can see why. The Oilers have only won 2 out of their last 14. And in their last 5, McDavid, 3 points -2. Nurse, 2 points -4. Draisaitl would be the best one out of the better players, but he still only has 4 points and a -2. Tyson Barrie, 0 points, -1. And Zach Hyman, 2 points, -6. So what we're seeing at the Edmonton Oilers is something that we talked about right from the beginning of the year. They have 0 depth. Everyone's blaming the goaltending. When I look at my star players and they're not performing as star players, we need secondary guys to step up. And when you look at Edmonton's roster, they don't have the secondary scoring. The Oilers are currently also on a 6-game losing streak in these last 14 games that they've been struggling in. They've been even worse during these last 6. Nothing is clicking. Mike Smith is injured again. Ken Holland is just sitting there not doing anything, where I don't think he can wait until the trade deadline. I think he needs to make a move now, or the Oilers aren't going to make the playoffs. And if Edmonton doesn't make the playoffs after giving Tyson Barrie the extension, signing Zach Hyman, going to get Warren Foegele, and the year before, re-signing Zach Kassian to that big contract, re-signing Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to that big contract, who, mind you, has been injured during this stretch. Edmonton's in a lot of trouble, and I think Ken Holland might be hauling his butt out the door. But now let's move on to our next story in the NHL, which is Evander Kane, which Ken Holland is trying to get. Evander Kane was about to sign with the Edmonton Oilers. It looked like he was good to go, and then another scandal. So Evander Kane is now being investigated for traveling and breaking the COVID-19 protocols. Kane was in COVID-19 protocol and then traveled from America to Canada, was there for a bit, and then he came back. Now, when he came back, however, he was late to be ready to play with his AHL affiliate. So again, this is just another scandal revolving around Evander Kane that's holding up him getting back on the ice and getting back in the NHL. The NHL released a statement saying that they're in no rush to finish this investigation. However, they're hoping to have something out by this week, hopefully for Friday's show, so we can discuss this even more. But again, we see when we watch the viz, Evander Kane is a phenomenal player who is just causing way too much drama. Speaking of drama, let's head over to the Winter Olympics. So the Winter Olympics have been a very hectic situation, especially in men's hockey, how the NHL wasn't going, but now there's another big scandal. So to participate in the Olympics, you have to use this My22 app. So this is an app where athletes and performers and anyone involved with the Olympics will register in, put in their vaccine information, put in their COVID test information, all that stuff. Well, it's now been brought to the forefront by a lab in Toronto that there are privacy issues with it. So what this app is doing, it's not checking if the servers that it's running on are protected or not, and people's information will get leaked. This was found in the beginning of December. So the company in Beijing decided to redo the app. They gave it a nice facelift, looks nicer, the whole 9 yards. Still has the same problem. So it's still not hiding people's information properly, and people are able to get into it and steal your private info. The Olympic Committee has not brought out a statement whether they are going to change the use of this app or not. But this is just more controversy to what already is a very, very, very controversial subject. Sticking with, obviously, well, sports, and we'll continue with hockey and in the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens have just picked a general manager. So the Canadiens decided to pick a general manager who isn't necessarily known as a general manager, in Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes was a player agent before. Now he's coming in to be the GM. So hopefully he can get this ship back on track, because when you look at Montreal, and some visual will come up on your screen of them, they just have not been playing well. The team is really struggling. They're not scoring, even losing to Arizona, which is really, really bad. But let's hope the new GM can shake things up and either get this team back on track or start the rebuild. And we've talked about the rebuild on SiouxOnline.com. I have a nice article there about the whole Carey Price situation, so feel free to check that out. But now let's move off from the ice to the football field. And we'll start with the Canadian Football League, of course. The Toronto Argonauts, on the snowiest day of the year in Toronto, decided to make a splash and re-sign Davaris Daniels and Boris Bede to contracts. So Davaris Daniels is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the Canadian Football League. He is now fourth in active wide receivers, or fourth or fifth for active wide receivers in catching yards, which is quite impressive realistically. He's right up there with Lucky Whitehead and Brian Burnham and Brandon Banks. So you have to respect that with Davaris Daniels. The other big move they did was bringing back Boris Bede. Boris Bede has one heck of a leg, and I know here we're just seeing a chip shot, but he is a absolutely phenomenal field goal kicker, and the guy's got range for days. So for Toronto, this is going to be very, very, very helpful, and we'll get into this more on Friday about maybe a reason why the Argos struggled a bit and had to rely on that field goal kicker way too much. But either way, biggest snowstorm of the year turned into big players staying in Toronto. So now let's move off the CFL and head over to the NFL. The NFL wildcard was this past weekend, and we have a graphic that's going to go over all the scores in these games. But this was one that I was a little disappointed with this week, if I'm going to be honest. Besides the Raiders versus the Bengals and the 49ers versus the Cowboys, which the Cowboys losing again, they're becoming the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NFL. I'm a Leaf fan, hurts to say it. But besides of those games, it was pretty much a blowout in every other game. Like you look, Bills beating Patriots 47-17, Chiefs beating the Steelers 42-21, Buccaneers beating the Eagles 31-15. Mind you, I do give the Eagles credit for at least hanging in. But there is one player I want to focus on, and that is Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, and some viz is going to come up on your screen of him. He is a phenomenal quarterback, and did he ever completely dominate this game. So Josh Allen finished 21 for 25, 308 passing yards, and 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. On all their drives, it was touchdown, 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 need to win the game. When your quarterback is running your offense that efficiently and that smoothly, you're not losing. So give Josh Allen a lot of credit. A lot of people call him one-dimensional, and I think against the Patriots defense, he really, really proved them wrong. And the Kansas City Chiefs this week coming up, it's going to be a very tough task to stop him. But again, we will get much more into that on Friday. Remember, the headline show is just to go over quickly what's going on in the sports world, and that's all we got to talk about for today. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for coming on in, and see you in the next one.
École publique Éco des Rapides, a place where your child can learn, grow, and be happy. Discover why more and more families are choosing École publique Éco des Rapides for their child. Register your child January 17th to the 21st at epedr.cspgno.ca. Parce que je vois grand.
It's Jake Moore, sports analyst, back in the On TV studios, letting you know that 705 Sports now has 2 shows a week. We still have the 705 Sports that airs every Friday at noon, but we've expanded to now have a show every Wednesday. 705 Sports Headlines will be a show that is much more condensed, that is very fast-paced, going over the main topics of the week in sports. 705 Sports on Fridays will still cover everything in sports in a full show format. This gives you a chance to really see what's going on in the sports world, whether you have a couple minutes or you got a half an hour. So make sure you join me, Dan Gray, on Fridays and multiple different guests every Wednesday, every Friday at noon, only on TV and Sue Online's Facebook.